What is up, Dynasty Leaguers? Welcome back into another DLF YouTube channel video. Today's video is another four-round rookie Superflex mock draft, joined by another amazing guest I got on here, Drew Osinchuk at DF Bean Counter on Twitter, another analytics guy just like me. So if you're a film guy, this might not be the mock draft for you because it might get a little analytics up in here. We might hate on some of the guys that you really like, but that might be for the actual mock. Drew, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I love everything that you're doing on Twitter, Patreon, all of that stuff. I think it's fantastic. The Bulletproof series and your kind of process, I think, is super unique for even just the fantasy industry, as saturated as it is with a lot of people's takes and stuff. I find that Bulletproof process to be extremely interesting because it is very objective. Like analytics are objective, but that process seems very structured and objective, even for analytics. So that's why I was really excited to bring you on and kind of, go through a little bit of that, explain some of the players that you really like from that process, and just kind of get your takes on some of this 2021 rookie class.
Sounds fun, man.
Cool. So, Drew, I kind of explained this a little bit to you, but then also for the viewers out there, we're just going to be running through a four-round Superflex rookie mock draft. Drew has taken the 4 spot, the 104 through the 4.04. I've grabbed the 11 spot, the 111 through the 4.11. So, Drew, if you're ready, I'm just going to hit the start draft button. We're just going to get right into this.
Let's dive in, man.
Let's do it. Let's dive in. All right. So we pretty, I think, normal start for a Superflex. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Najee Harris were the first 3 picks. I feel like that's pretty normal. So, Drew, you have a pretty wide range of picks here. Any of your wide receivers, any running back that's not Najee Harris, if you like Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, maybe this is Kyle Pitts. This isn't a tight end premium, by the way, just Superflex PPR, just normal stuff. So what are we looking at here to start off your draft 1.04?
I'm going to go with my guy, Jamar Chase. He's actually my 102 in Superflex right now. And getting him at the 104 just feels like a steal.
Yeah. I mean, that's the 102, I think, is pretty interesting in a Superflex. So you would take him over everybody but Trevor Lawrence, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what's the thought process and thinking behind Chase over all the other quarterbacks? Because Superflex, that's largely a quarterback heavy, type of format. And a lot of people, especially nowadays, are very much valuing that quarterback position in startups and in rookie drafts. I really wouldn't be surprised if a majority of rookie drafts start out 4 or maybe all 5 of the quarterbacks go in the first 5 or 6 picks. So Chase at 1.02 for you, I think, is really interesting. So are you that high on Chase, or maybe the quarterbacks are a little bit lower for you? What is that?
No, I'm that high on Chase. I really like Justin Fields as well. He would be right behind Chase, or maybe even equal to Chase, just because of scarcity at the quarterback position. But ultimately, Chase has a very, very projectable high ceiling, whereas a lot of the quarterbacks, I think it's really hard to pinpoint the ceiling. Like, I don't know. How would we know that Deshaun Watson was what Deshaun Watson was? I mean, prior to offseason problems, but like, there was nothing in his profile that suggested to me he was going to be one of the best passers in football. Even Patrick Mahomes, like, he was a really good prospect, but as a prospect, I wasn't like Patrick Mahomes is the next, Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. Like, he wasn't that caliber of prospect. Whereas when I look at Jamar Chase and the players that I comp him to, like the players that have the same type of profile, it's like your Julio Jones and AJ Green and honestly, I think he's the best prospect since Calvin Johnson. I think he's a better prospect than AJ Green and Julio Jones, which is kind of wild, but like he just checks every single box that you could ask him to check. He smashes everything.
Is there any? I mean, I'm assuming not by your answer, but there's nothing holding you back in the fact that we didn't see him play in 2020. So all we really have is basically his 2019 season, because his freshman season wasn't really anything. So it's just that one 2019 Joe Burrow best college football team of all time season, and that's it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. The thing that makes me so confident with Jamar Chase is that his profile is incredible to begin with. Like he's an alpha size wide receiver, even though he's only 6 foot 200 pounds. That's big enough, in my opinion, to carry the load on the outside. He is, an uber athlete. He's one of the most athletic wide receivers in the draft, and quite frankly, in any draft of basically the last 20 years. Not the most. Like that's Calvin Johnson. That's the most. But he's right up there with Julio Jones and AJ Green in size-adjusted athleticism. I use relative athletic score on that. And athleticism doesn't matter to me at the wide receiver position, except for when I'm looking at this specific tier of wide receiver where I'm trying to pinpoint the ceiling difference between my really good prospects. And when I do that and I look at just like the elite RAS scores, it like pops. It's like everyone with an elite RAS score that's also a really good prospect, like from a normal analytical standpoint, being like, early declare, age 21, productive, so on and so forth. Once you factor in the RAS on top of that, it just like pops all these like great players. It's, AJ Green, Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson, Andre Johnson. Who else is on there? Odell Beckham Jr., Des Bryant. Like the list just goes. Justin Jefferson is on that list, which I didn't know because I didn't figure it out until this year, which really is aggravating. It's been all over Justin Jefferson last year, but totally missed it. But anyway, and then his production is like, well, yeah, he only had 1 year of production, but we don't really ask players to hit at 18 anyway. It's 18 or 19. They're basically the same. So he hit at 19, and he did it with Justin Jefferson, who went on to set the rookie record. So, like, the transitive property here is, like, he's really good at football. And the NFL draft, it, like, sunk most of these guys that, weren't playing or weren't going to play. Most guys that don't play in their last year, like, take a nosedive. And Jamar Chase has not. He has not moved at all. He is still expected to be a very, very high pick. And if there weren't, like, a whole bunch of really good quarterbacks in the NFL draft, he would probably be in contention at, like, the 102 or 103, like, after Trevor Lawrence. But all these other quarterbacks are really good, too. So, it's hard to say that he's a top 2 pick when we're also talking about the NFL where quarterbacks are everything. So, yeah. Right. Anyway, I like Jamar Chase. I think that he has that projectable elite ceiling that I don't see at the quarterback position, mostly because I don't have a way to project the elite ceiling at the quarterback position.
Right. Hey, I'm 100% on board. I love Jamar Chase. He's firmly my wide receiver 1 in this class as well. Analytically hits on everything. So I don't think we really need to spend much more time on that. I think that was fantastic. And we can just, we'll just move right on here. The rest of this draft and the rest of the first round up till my pick went Travis Etienne at the 105, Zach Wilson, Kyle Pitts, Trey Lance, Rashad Bateman, and then Javonte Williams. So my pick would have been a lot easier if Javonte was still on the board. So I now had, I was kind of looking at it a little bit kind of while we were talking about Jamar Chase, and I do not have an easy pick here at the 111, although I think I'm just going to go with probably the more consensus pick at this point would be, because it's a super flex, Mac Jones. Mac Jones, I think, is a really good quarterback prospect. A lot of people are really down on him for some reason, just because he's like white dude that doesn't have a 6-pack. And it's like, he's like a phenomenal quarterback in my mind. Like, you don't just put up 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns in a single season in college football unless you're like some sort of good. And you might say, well, yeah, he did that at Alabama, but he did that with Devonta Smith and half of a year of Jalen Waddle, not Tua's year where he had Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Jerry Jeudy, and Henry Ruggs. I think that's really impressive. And I fully believe that Mac Jones is in contention for that 1.03 San Francisco 49ers pick, in which case I doubt you'll probably be able to get him at the 111 if that does happen. Even if he falls down to, Denver or maybe Washington trades up for him, even though they've been rumored to trade up for Trey Lance. I think if he lands inside the top 10 somewhere in the NFL draft, he's definitely in play here at the 111, if not higher, just because I think Mac Jones is a pretty solid guy. And I don't think he's going to be a world beater. I just think he's going to be a pretty solid fantasy option. You need, in Superflex, you need those QB2s, high QB2s with QB1 upside in certain weeks with certain efficiency. And that's what I think Mac Jones is. So any love for Mac Jones from you, Drew?
It's funny. I was really down on Mac Jones early in the process because I thought that, honestly, I thought he was 23. And when you look at the history of first round draft picks that are 23 at the quarterback position, It's basically Eli Manning and Carson Palmer, who both went first overall. And then all the other ones are terrible until we get to Baker Mayfield and Joe Burrow, who the jury's still out on, but also went first overall. So I was really skeptical, but then I found out that I had his birthday wrong, and he actually is 22 by like 5 days. So he's like right on the fringe.
Right.
And I don't know how to feel about that. But the other thing is he's only played 1 year. And I mean, he only played a little bit, he played a little bit in 2019 as well after Tua got hurt. But really, he's been the starter for one season. And when we look at one season wonders, it's really kind of scary. But his one season was incredible. There's no denying that. And then when I go on Twitter, because again, you know, projecting ceiling at the quarterback position, I don't know how to do it through math. I think I do, but it doesn't always seem to work out. Like, I'm pretty sure Justin Fields is probably going to break fantasy, to be perfectly honest. Like, he just seems like the kind of guy, based on all the stuff that he did at Ohio, that he's going to bust fantasy, and his like size speed combo as well. Whereas Mac Jones, it's like, well, we don't have the rushing upside. So what are we hoping for here? Like, are we hoping for Kirk Cousins? Because that's not very exciting to me. Which is,
I think them at Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan as a solid QB2, and if he gets a good team, maybe he overperforms in touchdowns a year or two, you get that top 5 Matt Ryan that we've gotten a couple times in his career. But more often than not, he's like QB 11 through 15. Yeah,
and like that's fine. At this point, I love it. Like I'll take it at that point. But if he's going to be, you know, a top 5 pick in SUPERFLEX drafts, I'm going to be passing on that one. So I've come around a long ways on Mac Jones because, again, I had his birthday wrong. So I thought he was 23. He's not. He's 22 and 360 days as of the start of the season. And then he's just like one of the big things I use is Cubase, which they changed this year. So I don't know how to use it anymore because I don't like it anymore. But he's really bad in Cubase this year. And I suspect he probably would be in the old Cubase they used to use. Cubase is a model from Football Outsiders that I've found tremendously valuable when analyzing quarterbacks. And then, like I said, you get on Twitter and you see these film guys, and some of them are like, oh, he throws with anticipation, he's so accurate. And then other ones are like, well, he can't drive the ball and he can't hit the guy on, you know, the out route and so on and so forth. And it's like, well, like, I don't know. Could Peyton Manning drive the ball and hit the guy on the out route? I don't know. I'm not a film grinder.
Yeah,
it was always my impression he didn't have a very strong arm, and that was Mac Jones. So is it really a problem? But then where I come back to when we're looking at fantasy football is in the days of Matt Ryan being a good quarterback in fantasy, like the top 5 seasons, it wasn't so prevalent. The Konami code quarterbacks weren't so prevalent. So now that it went from like a luxury, like you got the Konami code quarterback, yay, you're probably going to be a quarterback 1 no matter what. Now it's like every quarterback is a Konami code quarterback. So it's more of a necessity now. And I'm like, you know, what did Tom Brady have last year? 4,600 passing yards and 40 touchdowns. He was like QB 11 or something.
Yeah, he was still behind Lamar Jackson.
so it's just really hard to envision a high ceiling on a guy like Mac Jones. But at this point, I think it's completely warranted to take him here because in the SUPERFLEX league, even if you don't like Mac Jones, somebody needs a quarterback. So you can flip him for something pretty nice, even if you don't think he has a high ceiling.
Yep, easy. I think that's pretty solid on Mac Jones. So the final pick in the first round was Jalen Waddle. Then the start of the second round went Rondale Moore, Devonta Smith at 2.02, which I think is interesting to get him later like that. And then Pat Freiermuth, my boy, Pat Freiermuth at the 2.03, which I would not take him that high, but I'm about it. We're here. Drew, 2.04 here. You got basically the last couple of the running backs, I think, in this kind of range, and Kenneth Gainwell and Jamal Jefferson, and then like all these second tier wide receivers and Terrace Marshall, Elijah Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tylan Wallace, Diami Brown, all these guys in that second tier right there. So of all those people, you got to make a pick out of this one at 2.04. What are we looking at?
Can we just tangent for a second on Jamar Jefferson? I can't believe he's this high in ADP, and I see it everywhere, and it just blows my mind. Like, I get that he has incredible production. I absolutely agree. But he's going to be like a round 6 pick probably is what like Grinding the Mock says. Player Profiler has their Dynasty big board. He's like a round 6 pick or round 5 pick there. Like, he's just not
day 3
for
sure.
Capital. What's that?
I think I said he's day 3 for sure.
Yeah,
maybe slides in as a compensatory third rounder.
Maybe,
but I think it's more so he looked good in college and kind of has some analytics going for him. And this running back class is so not deep that he just kind of gets bumped up by running backs being necessary, and you don't have anybody else. So let me take Jamal Jefferson.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm continually blown away that Jamal Jefferson gets this much hype in the fantasy community with so little love, allegedly from the NFL community. Maybe once we get to the draft, he does go on, round 3 or something, and then I'll change my tune. But all projections right now look like he's a late day 3 pick at best. So anyway, I'm not going to take Jamal Jefferson is where I'm going with this.
All right.
I am going to take, this is a tough one. It's between Terrace Marshall and Elijah Moore for me. And I think I'm just going to swing for the ceiling and take Terrace Marshall because the guy, he doesn't fit my process. He's actually going to grade out as a bust grade, which is the lowest grade I ever give anyone. Just because he was so overshadowed by his context around his production is so hilariously on point for where people should be pointing to and saying teammates, like playing behind Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase is so much different than I couldn't break out to the level that you wanted because Henry Ruggs is on my team. Like it's completely different. And yeah, like I just think he's got a sky high ceiling. If he had not played with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, I think he, like, based on what he did in the games he played in his final year, it's hard to envision him not doing better elsewhere. And then you combine that with like his alpha size and his elite athleticism, which if he was playing somewhere else, say at Alabama, he may have broken out earlier and dominated 2 or 3 seasons, or maybe even 3 or 3 seasons, or hit the threshold, maybe not dominated. And then we're talking about him as a bulletproof player. And then he gets drafted in round 1, which he's right on the fringe. I think he's number 30 right now on grinding the mocks. Like, he could be in my generational tier in an alternate universe. Like, it's not crazy to me to think that he is that good. But that's not what happened. And my grades don't base it on what might have happened in an alternate universe. They're based on what actually happened. So he's going to be probably a bust. I'm treating him more like a coin flip alpha with some major upside in my rankings, because my rankings don't equal my grades exactly. Whereas, Elijah Moore, he's a great floor play. Like, I have almost no doubts that he's going to hit a top 24 in the NFL. He's just probably not ever going to be a wide receiver 1. And that's kind of disappointing to me. So I want Terrace.
Yeah. I like it. I like doubling down on the LSU wide receivers as well. I didn't
even realize that. Totally.
Yeah. I think Terrace Marshall is super interesting. He's a guy, I might actually make a new YouTube video on him, because he wasn't in my initial prospect video list that I did on individual guys. I kind of threw him in and like, here's the rest of the wide receivers that we need to mention. But Marshall has been climbing for me slowly, because I've been seeing the first round draft capital starting to happen in a lot more mocks recently. It is notable to mention that he is a prototypical size wide receiver, or more so, and that is significant in this draft class of not a lot of prototypical size wide receivers. I mean, think about like Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, Jalen Waddle. Devonta Smith is like 5'10" and like 170 pounds. So like, he fits that mold. He's a 3-year wide receiver, an early declare. So like, that is also notable in a class of not a lot of other early declares, Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith and, Tylan Wallace and stuff. So he has all of that going for him. And I think it is interesting. I think even if one of Jefferson and Jamar Chase weren't there, he would have produced across the other guy, like how they did. And I think we'd be singing a completely different tune. But he showed out last year without either one of them. And I think that really helped his case. And I think we need to be looking more at that than it is with him being the wide receiver 3 on his college team, where the 2 guys ahead of him are alpha wide receiver 1s in the NFL. Not like Jerry Jeudy, who is like maybe a 2. And that's why Devonta Smith couldn't break out or didn't have like the early breakout. Like you said, Henry Ruggs. But like, we have 2 alpha wide receiver 1s on this team. And so I think it's significantly different. So I love that you drafted him there and brought him up, because now I can talk about my other wide receiver love.
Hold on, I gotta tell you one other thing about Terrace Marshall, because I did say he's a bust in my process. I don't game adjust in my process, so it's cumulative stats for the whole season, and he would have hit in his final year if he didn't opt out, and or Kayshon Boutte did not put up 300 receiving yards in his final game. That 300 receiving yards bumped Terrace Marshall out of my hit tier in his final season. And that's absurd. Like, nobody would, like, 300 receiving yards from a friggin' 5-star freshman? Like, the kid's good, but he did nothing the whole year. And then he put up, I forget, it was like 70% of his production in the games after, in the 3 games after Terrace Marshall left. It was crazy. Yeah. Which, I mean, maybe it's to say that, you know, Terrace Marshall is boosted by the system. I don't know. But, like, oh, man. He's so close. Like, just play one more game. Or just, you know, ask Kayshon Boutte to only have 200 receiving yards.
And not 300. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So, Terrace Marshall, I think, needs to be in everybody's high second round.
For sure.
I'm about it there. I'm about it. So, but yeah, so the rest of the second round up to my pick, Elijah Moore, who you were also considering there. So it was cool that the computer decided to go with whoever you didn't. And then Kenneth Gainwell, Jamal Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chuba Hubbard, and then Kyle Trask, dipping back into the quarterback position at the 210. So my 211 is another one of my favorite players in this class, a wide receiver love that I've had for a couple months now. And that is Tylan Wallace, who I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on, because he is a 4-year guy, was very productive at Oklahoma State. And I think I think you're gonna be mad that I passed on somebody else. I think, but just based on how I know your process works and some of your recent tweets and analysis and videos and stuff, I know what you're gonna say. But I really, really like Tylan Wallace. He was a Biletnikoff finalist with Jerry Jeudy in 2018. Would have probably came out last year as an early declare had he not torn his ACL. But even the pace that he was on before his ACL was right back to where he was in his sophomore year at Oklahoma State. And then he came back to prove that that ACL injury was, you know, behind him. Produced in a shortened COVID season with limited training camp, and produced the same amount of per game stats as he did in his 2018-2019 season. Then ran a sub 4.40 at Exos, which believe what you want about how accurate those times are. I think the fact that he could even post that at Exos is significant to show that he is, you know, long past his ACL injury and that this kid is ready to play. I fully expect him to be an early day 2 pick. And I'm just very excited to get him at 211 after a lot of the other top guys. But Drew, you can go ahead and talk about Wallace, talk about the other guy that I passed on, and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm on your side when it comes to Tylan Wallace. I think I want to like him more than I do, maybe is the way to put it. I really think that he's quite good. But we had Ethan Turner, if you know who that is. He's one of the Twitter docs, as I call him. And we had him on for an AMA in the patrons Discord, and he brought up a really interesting tidbit on him. Is like he has the ACL tear, right? Which we know that once they have an ACL tear, they're more susceptible to further ACL tears in both knees, in fact, which I found kind of interesting. But what I didn't know was that his twin brother with like the same genetics has 3 ACL tears already.
Yeah, so, and it ended his football career.
It's like this guy is a walking ACL tear. Like he is almost in my mind, I'm treating him like he's going to miss at least another season at some point in his career due to an ACL tear. And the reason that Ethan gave for it was really interesting. And I am in no way qualified to talk about it as an accountant. So I'm going to do my best. So basically his knee is too narrow, or some bone in his knee is too narrow. And that is what is going to cause the ACL tears. And because his brother has the same knees, essentially, because they're the same DNA or whatever they are, they're twin brothers, so they have virtually the same thing. That's what the problem is their knees are too narrow for their ACL, and that's what tears the ACLs. And I was like, That's terrifying. Like some of these like kind of fringy players, if they have an ACL tear and miss a year earlier in their career, they're already done. Like it's already over. So he's a really scary player, even though I think he's a really good player because he dominated basically to extraordinary levels for like even the year that he got hurt, he dominated that year. So he's really good at football. I really like him. He is a senior, which is a little bit scary, but I do think that he is a senior because of the timing of his ACL tear. He wasn't able to participate in the, like the combine and like the pro day and the, team visits and stuff like that. Like he couldn't actually perform for NFL brass when he needed to in the draft process, which is I think why he went back, which is, what's his name from Georgia just tore his ACL and they're saying, well, he's going to be back and ready for draft season. So he still might declare. So I'm like, okay, well maybe Tylan just didn't declare because he wasn't ready for draft season, not because he wasn't good enough. And I like Tylan. I'm terrified of Tylan as well. And then
I'm actually glad that he stayed because I would prefer Tylan as a 4-year senior with second-round draft capital as opposed to an early declare with day 3 draft capital. So I think that evens
on day 3, I wouldn't like him at all.
Yeah,
but if he could have squeaked into round 3, which actually I think he's still projected to be a round 3 pick this year. So if he could have been a round 3 pick last year, I'd prefer him than this year. But even still, if he's a round 2 pick this year, that's a lot more encouraging than a round 3 pick because draft capital matters. So so yeah, I'm into it. I like it. At this point in the draft, I think that's a great pick.
I'm surprised you didn't bring up Seth Williams.
I'm about to.
let's do it.
So the only error that you made in this whole pick with Tylan Wallace was that you didn't take Seth Williams, and that's scary, man. Like I don't know how you missed on perhaps one of the most alpha wide receivers in this class. He has his highest ceiling as anyone, other than maybe Jamar Chase and Terrace Marshall. He's huge. He's 6'3", 210 thereabouts, maybe 215. I can't remember specifically off the top of my head. But he's big. We recently just found out maybe that he might actually be a 21-year-old rookie, which really helps him in my process because it gives me a lot more confidence over his age-adjusted production because I thought that he was competing in his freshman year at 19, and at 19, it's not that good. At 20, it's okay, and at 21, it's okay. Like he's kind of like right on the line. But if you shift him back a year, and his freshman is at 18, and then his second year is at 19, and then his third year is at 20, his production looks a lot better. And there's a conversation on Twitter yesterday, like, if 1 year matters to you, you already lost. 1 year matters a lot because it changes breakout age from 19 to 18. It changes his production, like I said, from being like right on the line of all the thresholds to being comfortably over all the thresholds. Like it's a huge deal if he's actually 21, if he's actually going to be a 21-year-old rookie. And then when you look at like his production in context, like he played with NFLers, which, he played with Darius Slayton, who was like I think he was a 5th round pick, but he popped in the NFL as a rookie. And Slayton was a senior and Seth was a 18-year-old freshman, and they like went toe to toe, and that's incredible. Like that is actually incredible. Even if Darius Slayton isn't good, he still is an NFLer. And Seth Williams went toe to toe, like 3 years his junior with no experience. Absolutely incredible. And then he also played with Anthony Schwartz, who's probably going to get drafted this year. I don't think he's very good, but he's probably going to get drafted on, round 4, round 5, something like that. He might even be a round 3 pick because he's super, super fast. I think he's around like a 4.27 or something.
I believe so, yeah. Or at least I thought he was low 4.3s, but yeah, he's in there.
Oh, was he low 4.3s? So maybe. Yeah, real fast. I mean, super, super fast, which is probably going to pump his draft stock a little bit. So anyway, Seth Williams, he checks every box that I look for if he is in fact a 21-year-old rookie, which again, there is still some debate as to which age he is. Originally, I had him down as a 21-year-old rookie, and then DLF had him as a 22-year-old rookie. Player Profiler had him as a 22-year-old rookie, and then I think it was Dane Brugler just put out his rookie guide, and he came up as a 21-year-old in there. So now I don't know what to think. I'm really all over the map. I think I still love him, even if he's a coin flip alpha, which he probably will be. Like, the big issue with Seth Williams right now is his stock is going down, and that's really concerning because he was already like a fringe 3rd rounder. It looks like he might be a day 3 pick, and in that case, I will be very sad about this pick because there's another guy I'd prefer if that's the case. Yeah. But oh, never mind. The other guy I prefer was Dynasty Brown, and he went right before me. So son of a gun, I guess I'm taking Seth no matter what.
All right. Well, unfortunately, you can't take Seth here because he went at 212.
What?
Yeah, he's right.
Oh my gosh. It went too fast. I missed it.
I took Wallace, and then Seth. The computer was like, "You messed up, Seth Williams."
Well, now I got to think. That was a long.
Yeah. Now you have to take
a rant about why I'm taking Seth Williams. I don't even get to take him. This thing's broken, man. Okay, I'm going to go
Michael
with
Carter than Dynasty Brown. So
what's that?
Trey Sermon, Michael Carter, then Dynasty Brown with the third rounder. So 3.04. Kadarius Toney, right?
I think it's got to be, and I hate it. Give me Kadarius. It's Kadarius Toney or it's Brevin Jordan, and honestly, I'll just take Kadarius Toney because he's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. He's going to get on the field, and I'm going to trade him as soon as he does anything in training camp that gets anyone excited about him.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I'd be surprised when Kadarius Toney is the first rounder if he actually is a third-round pick.
I can't see it.
Yeah, I don't. Because I remember a tweet last year where I was researching Brandon Ayuk, and he was like a mid-ish second rounder. And I remember saying that was, at least from DLF's ADP, since they've been tracking rookie ADP, that was the latest a first-round wide receiver had ever been taken.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So if we're talking about Toney in the late second as a first-round pick in the NFL draft, that would be the latest that a first-rounder wide receiver had ever gone.
That would be unprecedented.
Really interesting.
And then I would get Seth Williams at 304 probably. So
yeah. So it actually all works out for you.
Yeah.
I love it. So Kadarius Toney, just straight first-round pick, draft capital pick here. So
the only appeal of Kadarius Toney is his draft capital for me.
Yeah, I don't think we really need to dig in all too much. I think it's really interesting that outside of my Mac Jones pick, we've taken all wide receivers. So there's that. Maybe I might change that in the fourth round, or maybe at this pick. Let me see. Brevin Jordan, Tamorion Terry, Ramondre Stevenson, Nico Collins, Larry Roundtree, Dwayne Eskridge for the rest of the third round. For me at 311. Oh man. I should not have picked 311 because then I have to talk about these players that I don't really know a lot about. I'm going to dip into the running back pool here. And I'm just going to go with Kylan Hill here, who I think could have some upside as a late round pick in the NFL draft and just have some upside for you at the 3.11, because at this point to me, like Sage Surratt, I think is interesting, but I don't know where he fits in the NFL. Tutu Atwell, I made the joke like 5 times last week. He weighs like 155 pounds. So not really in on that. Amari Rodgers, I think, is also really interesting, but I'm not sure on him. Like, is he like a 5th or 6th round guy or later? I'm really not sure. I thought Kellen Mond would have been interesting just as a quarterback because he's getting 2nd round hype potentially right now. But man, like, I think Kylan Hill offers the best upside at this point as a running back if he can land in a semi-decent spot in the NFL. And that's kind of where I'm going to leave it.
No, I'm with you. I think he's probably not very good, but he's the best that's available at this point. And, right. and like at running back, the guy in front of him gets injured and he's suddenly a starter and you can flip him for something that matters. And
yeah.
That doesn't really happen at wide receiver. Like, the wide receiver actually has to be good. He can't just be in the right place at the right time more often than not. So yeah. I could get behind that one.
Cool. Well, Drew, you're on the clock. Last pick, 4.04. Sage Surratt, Tutu Atwell, Kellen Mond, and Javian Hawkins were the picks between you and me. So 404. I'll scroll down a bit if you need a little bit more of these players to take your last pick on.
I don't like anyone that's left. This is hard.
I could scroll down a little bit more.
No, it's probably too far. Who am I going to take? How about... I guess I'm going to throw a dart on that tight end Hunter Long. Ooh. Long has a pretty good profile, in my opinion. He's not great by any sort. Well, obviously, he's not great. He's available in the 4th round of a rookie draft, so he's clearly not very good. But at this point, he's got a pretty decent profile. Like, he produced quite a bit in college. He was a pretty freaky athlete, actually. I think he had a 8 or 9 RAS score, or 8.9 maybe even. He was right in that ballpark. And at that point, we'll just see if he can, flash, maybe put up 300-400 yards as a rookie, and then we can punt him for something else.
Yeah. He's got hype recently on Twitter just because of his athletic profile.
Yeah.
Because that's really what you need from tight ends, especially if they're not going to get the draft capital just to even have a shot. They need to be athletic. So Hunter Long has all of that with his athletic score and stuff that I've been seeing more recently. So I think that is an interesting pick. And that was actually, I don't think anybody's ever taken Hunter Long in one of these videos. So you're the first one.
Trailblazing here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the computer unfortunately prevented me from talking about Elijah Mitchell for like the 10th time. So we got Brennan Eagles, Amari Rogers, Jarrett Patterson, Raheem Boyd, Khalil Herbert, and then Elijah Mitchell. So I have to take another 4th rounder here. That's not Elijah Mitchell. He's like my auto 4th round pick. So I have to pick somebody else. And I don't know who to take. I mean, I could take Anthony Schwartz. I looked it up, by the way. He did run a 4.26 at his pro day. But I feel like I saw somebody like combine adjust it to like a 4.31 or something like that.
I think, how people are doing nowadays. Player Profiler, I believe, does that to all their pro day stuff. That's actually a really interesting debate. Have you been following that much? Or like looked into it? Oh man,
I have not honestly looked into it. I know that there's a Twitter group that I'm in, and I forget who it is, but they have like all this like combine database stuff, and they basically found that all the pro day numbers this year are like 0.7 of a second faster on average than a normal class, which makes it really interesting that like these times are kind of inflated, and we probably should be adjusting for them and not just taking them at face value with, saying that, they run a 4.3 when they're actually, closer to a 4.4 or above it. I don't really have an opinion on it, to be honest with you. Like, because to me, when I'm looking analytically, I just want them to hit a threshold, and that threshold is a 4.6. So if they're running a 4.3 at the 4.35 at their pro day, but that actually means that they're a 4.4, I really don't care. I think the only one that really made a difference or matters for me is like Javonte Williams ran a 4.56. And so if you 0.05 second adjust that, he's now past the 4.6. So that one's important. But I don't know. Like, do you have an opinion on adjusting these pro day times?
I don't know what to do with it. Coop_DFF is one of my patrons, and we were talking about it in the Patreon. And he was saying like we shouldn't be adjusting them, and he made a good point that when we're looking at comparing the guys who ran at their pro day and at the combine, these are the guys that ran bad at the combine. Like maybe they, like if there's a range of outcomes for their 40 time, they probably ran in their bottom 50th percentile. Like they ran poorly. That's why they want to rerun. So are we really getting an accurate picture of how much faster pro day times are than combine times? Or are we just getting an accurate picture that the guys who had to rerun ran bad at the combine? That's why they reran. And I was like, that's a pretty good point. I don't really know what to think about that. And then I actually saw something different than what you just said, where everybody's like 0.07 seconds faster. I had saw somebody saying that this class was on the upper end of things, but it certainly wasn't the fastest class in history by any stretch. And I don't remember who that was, though. That was somebody on Twitter. So I was like, you know what? I don't really know what to do. It doesn't really matter to me. I don't like if somebody runs like you said, a 4.36 or 4.41, it doesn't make a difference to me other than like the RAS score. Like if Terrace Marshall and Jamar Chase are not active, well, not even Terrace Marshall, Jamar Chase isn't actually as athletic as his time suggests, then maybe he doesn't fall into that Odell Beckham Jr., Des Bryant, Justin Jefferson, Julio Jones tier, and I'm being tricked. But I mean, all we can do is make the best decision we can with the information that we have. So we'll give it a shot and see what happens.
Yeah. I think it's good too that like every wide receiver and every player in this class did not have a combine time. They're all just these pro day times. So we can compare pro day to pro day. It's not like we're just comparing pro day to combine and whatnot. And a lot of the pro days now have more laser timing. Like these aren't like you're pulling 10 scouts who all had their stopwatches on them and they all click go at a different time and they all click stop at a different time. So then you're kind of getting a gauge. They're just not like super frame by frame adjusting like the combine does, but they're still, you know, more accurate of a laser time than just a stopwatch. So that's why I kind of have been taking them just as like, oh, he ran a 4.36 at his pro day. I'm just going to call it a 4.36 and that's where I'm at. Yeah,
that's a good point too. Like these are a lot more standardized pro day times than what we've seen in the past. Like, I'm pretty sure the NFL has said that they were sending out like actual crews to do the pro day timing. Whereas I believe it was more or less just like stopwatches in the past, other than like the big schools like Alabama would have had laser times and whatnot. But I don't. It's probably a moot point. It doesn't really make a difference for the most part, other than maybe Jamar Chase. And actually at tight end too, like tight end athleticism does matter to me at tight end. So some of these guys, if their numbers are inflated, I may think they're a little better than they actually are, but we don't know. So just go with it.
Yep. As long as they just check a box for me and I'm good to go. I'm going to assume that they're athletic and we're going to move on. That's where I'm at. So all of this stalling, talking about combine times and pro day times, did not help me make a pick. So, man, I really don't know. Like, because I think Sam Ehlinger could be interesting. It just is like a dart throw quarterback because he's also getting hyped kind of like Kellen Mond. I don't know. Anthony Schwartz could be interesting. Puka Williams could be interesting. Chris Evans, I think, could be interesting. I'd talk myself into Chris Evans. And we're just going to go with Chris Evans because I have heard, I think was it Ray Garvin, I think, was talking about Chris Evans and like the potential that he has out of Michigan and stuff. And because he had been pretty solid at Michigan, you know, production wise and statistically. And then I forget who like the other Michigan guy, it sounds like Chardonnay, but it's not. But he like kind of took over when Chris Evans got hurt and whatnot. And as a late round dart throw guy with semi prototypical size, I looked it up and it's not Chris Evans, the actor, but Chris Evans, the Michigan running back, is 5'11", 216 pounds. And he can catch out of the backfield. You know, he can run through the tackles. I talked myself into Chris Evans, so I'm just going to stick with it. 4'11", we're going to call it.
Sounds good.
All right, man. So I very much appreciate you hopping on here and running through this mock draft with me, talking about all the different points of all these different players, kind of your bulletproof process and everything. So just to kind of wrap it up here, why don't you shout out what you're doing, where people can find you, all that good stuff on all your end.
Sure. So I'm on Twitter at DFBeanCounter, and then that's pretty much where I do everything now. And then I have patreon.com /bulletproofff, which is where I do all my rankings. So dynasty rankings and rookie rankings and Devy rankings and whatever rankings you want. And then we have like the patrons Discord, which is like, I think I got about 50 messages on it in the time we've been doing this mock draft. So it is on fire at all times of the day. And then I got a podcast now. I just started a podcast like 2 months ago. I think we're 8 episodes in, which has been kind of fun and a real learning experience. Podcasting is way harder than I ever expected it to be. And it's Bulletproof Fantasy Football. And then we got the YouTube channel, which is also Bulletproof Fantasy Football. And it is actually the same content as the podcast. We just chop it into segments on the players and then add graphics so that numbers make sense. It's really hard to follow numbers when people keep just saying them, but if you can like visualize what that number is, and then when I say another number, the first number is still sitting there so you can compare them, it's just so much easier. So anyway, that's where I am.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah, for all the DLF viewers out there, I highly recommend checking out Drew's YouTube channel, or at least the podcast, or both. I myself, I watch and listen to the YouTube channel. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's fantastic. If you enjoyed any of my, rookie prospect videos or anything like that, you would definitely enjoy Drew's as well. Kind of similar, but has his own bulletproof spin on it and stuff. And it's very well done, and I like a lot of it. So highly recommend checking out his YouTube channel. I'll link it down in the description down below. And so with all being said, thanks to you everybody to join in and tune in with us and watch this 4-round rookie mock. We'll be back next week with another one leading all the way up to the NFL draft. We're like 3 weeks away from it, so it's getting very, very close. And then eventually we'll have landing spots for all these, and we'll do rookie mocks after the NFL draft with landing spots. And Drew, you might be back to do one post draft.
Sounds great.
All right, man. Well, hey, thank you, Drew. Thank you to everybody watching, and we're gonna call it here. So we'll catch y'all later.